Since we don't have a full hall, can I please request all of you to come forward? Makes it easier for whoever enters the temple to have a seat as well. The topic for today's class is Lord Narsimha Dev in Vrindavan. Okay. How many here, it's a very odd place to ask the question, but I'll ask it nonetheless. How many here have not heard of Narsimha Dev? How many? Okay, very good. So how many here would like to hear about Narsimha Dev's Leelas? Okay. Okay, we'll have our usual second Sunday feast trivia question. Which ISKCON temple would you associate Narsimha Dev's deities with? The first temple that will come to mind. Mayapur. Mayapur? Yes. Yeah. How many of you have been and had actual darshan of the Ugra Narsimha Dev deity in Mayapur? Only one. Two. Oh, geez, all of you need to get those tickets out pretty quickly. You should. It is quite a sight, and a very and the Narsimha Dev deity in Mayapur is a deity that reciprocates with the devotees quite a lot. There's in fact a book on the pastimes of Mayapur Narsimha Dev deity. You should definitely make it a point to go and have darshan of the Narsimha Dev deity in Mayapur. Yes. Oh, okay, Mayapur TV. All right, that's one way to do it. Well, that's one way to have the darshan as well. But please go there in person if you can. Amazing deity and a fascinating story of how the deity came to the temple in Mayapur. But that's for another day. So, on that topic, the class is about Narsimha Dev in Vrindavan. In ISKCON, of course, Narsimha Dev is very famous in Gaura Leela, and he's prominently placed in Mayapur. So we'll talk a little bit about the way the class is structured, a lot to cover. We'll talk a bit about Narsimha Dev, where he's prominently found, a bit about his qualities, and we'll slowly ease into where is Narsimha Dev mentioned in the scriptures in Vrindavan. And I use this word carefully. The scriptures in Vrindavan written in Vrajabhasha by the devotees in Vrindavan. And then we'll talk about the glories of the various Narsimha Dev deities and the Shaligram Shilas, Narsimha Shaligram Shilas. And then we'll talk about the prominent, we'll talk about Narsimha Dev's pastimes in Vrindavan and the prominent Narsimha Dev deities in Vrindavan. So if you want to make notes, if anyone's putting a holiday guide together, you'll get a very comprehensive list. And hopefully at the end of the class, we're all motivated to go and see these deities in Vrindavan the next time we're there. So like I said, in the Gaura Leela, Narsimha Dev, again, he features all over Gaura Desh. There are very famous, prominent Narsimha Dev temples in Mayapur, in Jagannath Puri, one particularly prominent one in Jagannath Puri, who we'll talk about a bit during the class. But even in the actual, in the pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in the Chaitanya Mangala, Madhyakand, there's a whole pastime where Srivas Thakur is performing the Shraddha of his father. The ceremony that a son performs when the father leaves on an annual basis. And as a part of this ceremony, they chant the 1,000 names of Lord Vishnu, the Vishnu Sahasranam. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is also attending the Shraddha ceremony of Srivas Thakur. And while they're chanting the Vishnu Sahasranam, when the name Narsimha is taken, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu suddenly changes his mood and he develops this really aggressive demeanor. And he starts shouting, that I'm going to kill the atheists, I'm going to kill the atheists. And he has this real angry mood, which you would associate with Narsimha Dev. He comes out of the pillar and angrily kills Hiranyakashipu with that mood. And then after a period of time, and he's almost ready to go out into the streets, yelling and screaming that he's going to kill the atheists. And then he just pauses, checks himself, adjusts himself and thinks to himself, no, this is not the mood in which I've come to the Kali Yuga. And he goes back to Srivas Thakur's house after adjusting himself. So that's just a little bit of a segue into Narsimha Dev in Gaura Leela. In the actual pastimes of Krishna, In Nandagram, where Krishna used to live with Mother Yashoda and Nanda Maharaj, they used to have a family deity of Narsimha, who Mother Yashoda used to pray to every night for the protection of Krishna and Balram. Another prominent deity in Vrindavan as well, who Mother Yashoda used to worship. Two prominent deities actually, and we'll touch base with them as well. In Rupa Goswami's famous book, the Padyavali, there's a famous pastime where every day when she's putting Krishna to sleep, Mother Yashoda tells him different stories, and particularly she tells him the story of Narsimha, and the baby Krishna always asks her about that story of Narsimha again and again, about how Narsimha came from the pillar with Prahlad Maharaj's prayers. And when the part comes when she describes how Narsimha jumps onto Hiranyakashipu and kills him, he has a slight wry smile on his face because he internally remembers the pastime from the previous Yuga, because he was the one who was Narsimha in the first place. So that's also a very sweet pastime in the Padyavali. Then, how many of you have been to Vrindavan? Now we'll get to the core of the class. Quite a few. Okay. So for everyone who's been to Vrindavan, how many of you have had darshan of Radha Raman, one of the prominent deities in Vrindavan? Okay. Another quick trivia question. Which Goswami is associated with the deities, with that particular deity of Radha Raman? Those are his deities. He found them. Yes, very good answer. Gopal Bhatta Goswami. Do you know how he found them? Yeah. Yes, when he was having a bath in the Yamuna. The Shaligram Shila got transformed into the deity. So, Gopala Bhatta Goswami, on the day of Narsimha Chaturdashi, is praying to the Narsimha Shaligram Shila that he has, and he's praying that the Lord manifests in a very personal form to him. And the very day when he's having a bath, the Lord manifests as Radha Raman. It's a deity not very big, not very tall, maybe that big, but very sweet deity. Is known to reciprocate a lot with the devotees who worship him, Radha Raman. And also a fascinating thing about the temple of Radha Raman is, back in the day, it used to have a moon-like symbol at the front of the temple. So when the Mughals invaded Vrindavan, and we've covered this in a previous class, they actually thought that it was a monument associated with Islam, so they didn't enter that temple. So Radha Raman was one deity who was always in Vrindavan. Some of the other prominent deities in Vrindavan were shifted to Jaipur, but the Radha Raman deity always stayed in Vrindavan, and he's always been there since. Now when you go to Vrindavan, that whole area, as you know, that's the Braja area, and there are thousands and thousands of temples. Even if you go to the villages around Vrindavan, you'll find very, very simple and also elaborate worship at the same time, and very personal, worship of Radha and Krishna. The festival Holi is associated with Vrindavan. It is celebrated with a great deal of gusto. There's one village in Vrindavan called Phalain, and they have a local tradition that they observe the festival of Holi for 5 days. It's every year, Krishna along with Nanda Maharaj and Yashoda Maya and Balramji and all his entourage would go to attend that holy festival in Phalain, which was, and for 5 years, for 5 days, the locals there, they burn the effigies of Holika, Hiranyakashipu's sister, and celebrate, Prahlad Maharaj's devotion and Narsimha coming, his appearance, and the disappearance of Hiranyakashipu and the disappearance of Holika with great gusto. So if you are ever in Vrindavan during Holi, which is not too far away, you can go to this village in Phalain. In the Narsimha Puran also, and various other scriptures which deal with the story of how Narsimha came, and again, depending on which manvantra it was, there are slight subtle variances to the story. There's Narsimha himself, when he comes, he thinks, when he gets getting out of the pillar, the first thought that he comes, which is listed in the Puranas, is that if this king of demons were to stay alive, then my devotee Prahlad, his glories will be manifested in only one location in this universe. However, if this demon is killed, then it will give immense happiness or Prahlad to the whole universe. So in this verse, there's a slight play of words. If I don't think you may have not noticed it. So Narsimhadev is thinking that if Hiranyakashipu, if I kill Hiranyakashipu, then the whole universe will get a lot of Prahlad or joy. And if he stays alive, then the glories of Prahlad Maharaj, or the glories of the devotee Prahlad will be known in just this location. So there's a slight play of words where the word Prahlad means joy or great happiness. And there's a slight play of words about the actual devotee Prahlad as well as the meaning Prahlad, which means giving a lot of joy or a lot of joy. And with this in mind, Narsimhadev proceeded to kill Hiranyakashipu with his nails, bestowing Prahlad in the whole universe. So that's just a slight. This particular verse is mentioned in a Brajavasa scripture, Shubhasita Ratna Bandagram. And thanks to the work of His Holiness Indradumna Swami and the Vrindavan Research Institute, we've got access to these literatures now. Now, some unique qualities about this pastime of Narsimhadev where he's come to kill Hiranyakashipu. In all the paintings that you'll see, the fight between, if you read the Bhagavatam, the actual fight between Hiranyakashipu and Narsimhadev was brief but quite intense. And in this fight, there was fire coming out from Narsimhadev's mouth because he was very, very angry when he was slaying Hiranyakashipu. But in all the paintings that you see, including the 7th canto of the Bhagavatam, where it's right in the center, where Narsimhadev, has got Hiranyakashipu on his lap and he's killing him. There is no perspiration on the body of Hiranyakashipu. And the Vrindavan scriptures tell us that the fire coming from Narsimhadev's mouth evaporated any perspiration on Hiranyakashipu's body. And that is why you don't observe any perspiration on any of the paintings. And then all the demigods, after he had killed Hiranyakashipu, the Bhagavatam elaborates to say that all the demigods, even Lakshmi Devi comes to pacify Narsimhadev, who's like in a very angry mood. In fact, the garland on Narsimhadev is actually the intestines of Hiranyakashipu. It's described, a graphic description rather, but that's how the pastime unfolded. And only Prahlad Maharaj was able to pacify Hiranyakashipu. So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he brings up a very unique point. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, in whose line we come, the actual Guru Maharaj of Srila Prabhupada, he makes a very important point. He in the commentary in the Srimad Bhagavatam, he points out that Shukadev Goswami, when he is describing that particular part of the Srimad Bhagavatam, when Narsimhadev is slaying Hiranyakashipu, he calls Hiranyakashipu Shri Hiranyakashipu. When you give the title Shri is associated with either a powerful personality or a very beautiful or attractive personality. So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur points out the fact that Shukadev Goswami uses the word Shri Hiranyakashipu. And then in his commentary, he writes the reason why Hiranyakashipu is called Shri Hiranyakashipu in the Bhagavatam by Shukadev Goswami is that he was responsible for a very unique incarnation or a very unique form of Krishna. Where Krishna, now another trivia question, Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita he comes for a few reasons. Anyone knows that verse from the 4th chapter? Yes, Paritranaya Sadhunam. Yes, to deliver the pious and yes. The extension of the verse. Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya dushkritam dharma samstha punarthaya sambhavami yuge yuge. So he comes to deliver the pious and annihilate the miscreants. This is the only incarnation of Krishna, the only form of Krishna, where he pretty much comes for one devotee. He comes to reciprocate with just one devotee who also reciprocates and is the only devotee who is able to pacify the Lord. So that's the other unique thing of Narsimha. He comes for one, and Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur points that out. That the other reason, now, one is Narsimha comes for one devotee, Prahlad Maharaj. But then he addresses he points out that Hiranyakashipu is called Shri Hiranyakashipu because the other reason Narsimha comes is because Hiranyakashipu throughout his tenure in this material world is adamant of the fact that Vishnu is an ordinary person. Vishnu is not the supreme personality of Godhead. He is also bestowed with the boon which has a number of permutations and combinations on how he can be killed. And there was no other person except the supreme personality of Godhead who had to personally come and deliver Hiranyakashipu. The fact that Hiranyakashipu was able to bring the supreme personality of Godhead to this world qualifies him in Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's eyes as being a prominent personality, and hence he points out that Shukadev Goswami also addresses him as Shri Hiranyakashipu because he made Narsimha come not only for Prahlad Maharaj but also to prove to Hiranyakashipu that Vishnu is the supreme personality of Godhead. And in a way, and then Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur also, a slight play of words in Sanskrit, he points out that effectively Purushottam came to deliver Purushodham. Purushottam is the word used in Sanskrit in the Bhagavad Gita. Uttam means the topmost. Purush or mankind, the topmost of all mankind or all men is Purushottam. Krishna is referred to as Purushottam in the Bhagavad Gita by Arjuna. And then there is a word Naradham in the Bhagavad Gita, which is the lowest amongst men. And here Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur points out, so the Purushottam had to come to deliver the Purushodham. Purushodham has the similar meaning, the lowest amongst men. And coming now slowly staring towards Vrindavan. In Vrindavan there was a very famous poet, Vaishnava poet, Paramananda Prabhu, who wrote a number of scriptures and poetry especially in Braja Bhasha. It's an offshoot of Hindi, their own Braja Bhasha. It's a very sweet sounding language. And there's a verse, one of his poems is he wrote on this particular pastime, he wrote that Prallade Chuma Bhattor Chatatat Bhakta Hridaya Ko Nivaryo. So I'll repeat it again. Prallade Chuma Bhattator Chatatat Bhakta Hridaye Ko Nivaryo. The translation is, Narsimha licked Prallad. He placed Prahlad Maharaj on his lap and licked Prahlad Maharaj like lions do with their cubs. And because of that, the rain of the Lord's saliva squelched the fire of separation from Lord Vishnu in Prahlad Maharaj's heart. Furthermore, he says, he writes a commentary on this verse. He says, this is a very unique pastime where the Lord performed an abhishek of his devotee. Usually the devotee performs an abhishek of the Lord and the Lord's deity. But in this case, the Lord performed an abhishek of his devotee. Usually in deity worship, the opposite happens. But such is the reciprocal love of the Lord and his devotee. Where this pastime is used for, Narsimha has Prahlad Maharaj on his lap and is licking him like lions do to their cubs. And that is compared to Narsimha performing an abhishek on his supreme devotee, Prahlad. And and then he talks on about how the Lord is hard on the non-devotees but equally soft on his devotees. He says that there's another short couplet which he writes where he says, Ugropi anugre ivayam sa bhakta nam narkeshari keshariva subatam anyesha ugra vikramaha. So that means, he says, although very ferocious, the lioness is very kind to her cubs. Similarly, although very ferocious to the non-devotees like Hiranyakashipu, the Lord is very soft and kind to devotees like Prahlad Maharaj. And then he compares Narsimha nature to sandalwood. And one will ask, what do you mean by sandalwood? And so did I when I heard this. What is the property of sandalwood? No. So when you apply sandalwood, and we had the Chandan Yatra recently where they smear sandalwood paste on the deities, especially in Mayapur. What is it has a cooling effect, right? So Paramananda Prabhu is comparing Narsimha to sandalwood by using the analogy that he is very hard on non-devotees and soft on devotees, like two very opposite things. So he's saying, and Paramananda Prabhu elaborates, he says that Hiranyakashipu's Narsimhadev's nature is like sandalwood. Sandalwood, when you apply it on you, it has a very cooling effect. But then he says that the yogis who meditate in the Himalayas, in the icy slopes of the Himalayas, they actually smear their bodies with sandalwood ash. And when you burn sandalwood and it produces sandalwood ash, and you smear that on your body, it gives you the heat produced by 100 quilts. And that is what the yogis in the Himalayas smear on their bodies to keep themselves warm. So similarly, Narsimhadev's nature is compared to sandalwood. If the non-devotees are in front of him, he has a very hot nature. But then if he have devotees in front of him, he has a very cooling effect on the devotees. So that is another beautiful quality of Narsimhadev elaborated by the devotees in Vrindavan. I mean, we always associate Narsimhadev with a very fiery mood, so this is something very unique to know. Now, Srila Rupa Goswami, he wrote many literatures in Vrindavan. One another not so well-known literature is called the Vidagdha Madhava. So this is again a prominent Braja literature, Vidagdha Madhava, known only to the devotees in Vrindavan, where Srila Rupa Goswami, he writes about a particular pastime of Krishna, between Krishna and Radharani, between Krishna and Srimati Radharani, where Krishna was once talking to Srimati Radharani, and he was actually telling her that, I have these prominent 10 incarnations. And he was comparing his 10 incarnations to Srimati Radharani. And he said to her, "Dearest Radha, not only I am not alone in being your surrendered servant. I am not alone. Even my 10 incarnations are your surrendered servants." And he says the Matsya incarnation or the fish incarnation serves the restless fish of your eyes. Then it gets into very intimate details, some of which I took off for this class. But then when he comes to describe the Narsimha incarnation, he says the Narsimha incarnation who delights Prahlad Maharaj serves your lips. Parshuram and Ram are defeated by the beauty of your face. And then he talks about how Vaman Dev is compared to Radharani's waist and the 3 skin folds, the Tribali skin folds of her waist. Buddha Dev is the loveliness of your body. And then he concludes by saying, "And my incarnation of Kalki, O noble girl, serves the crookedness of your anger that you harbor in your heart." So this is just a sweet pastime between Krishna and Radharani where he's talking about these incarnations and Narsimhadev is listed there. So the particular verse that Rupa Goswami writes when he is describing Narsimhadev in this book, Vidagdha Madhava, is Tavayam Dhara Prahlad Samvardhana. And the word Samvardhana again is to bring great joy. So we spoke about how the word Prahlad means the devotee Prahlad and great joy that you experience. So the lower lip is, and Narsimhadev is compared to the lips of Radharani. The lower lip is Samvardhana and is a cause of increasing Prahlad, Rupa Goswami writes. That the lower lip, which is called a Samvardhana, is a cause of increasing Prahlad for Krishna, just as Narsimhadev is Samvardhana for the devotee Prahlad. Just as Narsimhadev gives great Samvardhana or joy to the source of joy, Prahlad. So there's that. And now we'll come to the history. We'll slowly talk about. Then there's another famous Vrajbhasa literature, which is known as the Vrindavan Dham Niragavali. It also borrows a lot of verses from the Narsimha Puran, and then it talks about the glories of worshipping the Narsimha Puran. It describes a verse in which Durvasa Muni has written that the residents of hell move towards heaven just by chanting the holy name. And then the Nectar of Devotion, which is a book many Gaudiya Vaishnavas are familiar with. Again, Rupa Goswami is the author of that book as well. In chapter 2.5.11, Rupa Goswami talks about the 12 rasas or the 12 moods of Krishna. There's the 5 primary rasas and the 7 secondary rasas. All of you are familiar with the 5 primary rasas. Shanta rasa, Dasya rasa, Sakhya rasa, Vatsalya rasa and Madhurya rasa. So those are the 12, and those are the 5 primary, and there are 7 secondary rasas mentioned in the Nectar of Devotion. Now and then there is a comparison of some of the incarnations of Krishna with some of these rasas. Kapila Dev is compared to, the Shanta ras of passive meditation. Vaman Dev is, just like Vaman Dev was a great friend of Bali Maharaj, a great friend of Indra, and then even became subservient to Bali Maharaj because of his friendship to Indra, and still, Bali Maharaj is doorkeeper in Sutala. So Vaman Dev is compared to the Sakya ras. Narsimha Dev, with the affection that he has for Prahlad, Maharaj's devotee, is compared as the embodiment of the Vatsalya ras, or a mood of parenthood towards the Lord. And there again, now we'll slowly move we'll talk about some of the Narsimha Shaligram Shilas, and we'll talk about how historically Narsimha Dev has been worshipped in Vrindavan, before slowly moving on to some of the prominent deities of Narsimha Dev in Vrindavan. The deities of the Shaligram Shila of Narsimha Dev in particular has been worshipped in Vrindavan. There's no backdate to it for time immemorial, as they say. In fact, some of the oldest temples in Vrindavan, they used to have Narsimha Shaligram Shilas. They used to have carvings copying how Narsimha Shaligram Shila looks. So how many here have ever seen a Narsimha Shaligram Shila? Oh, 1. Okay. 2. No, not just a Narsimha Shaligram Shila. Okay, very good. 2. So, you all know how Shaligram Shilas are very unique. You find them. You find them in the Kali Gandaki River in Nepal. The Shaligram Shilas they've got very different features pertaining to different forms of the Lord. The Giriraj Shaligram Shilas are very famous. Then the Sudarshan Chakra Shaligram Shilas are very famous. The Narsimha Shaligram Shilas, they have this gaping mouth. They have this shape of a gaping mouth with chakras or sharp teeth. That is a way to identify that it's a Narsimha Shaligram Shila. So when they used to construct temples in Vrindavan, they used to have this gaping mouth-like structure with chakras right at the entrance of the temple for the protection of the deities and for the protection of the area. And that was to invoke Narsimha Dev's blessings. And then, usually, historically, traditionally, how they did it in Vrindavan is, they used to worship Narsimha Shaligram Shilas in a very unique way. Like to a Shaligram Shila, usually one makes offering of tulsi and other food stuff. But with Narsimha Shaligram Shilas in particular, they worship the mouth of the Narsimha Shaligram Shila with crystals of camphor to pacify the Shila, because Narsimha Shaligram Shila, just like the personality Narsimha Dev, can get very angry. And the worship standards are very, very strict. In fact, if they're not followed properly, they can have reversals for the worshipper as well. So one has to be very careful by observing worship of Narsimha Shaligram Shilas, not for everybody. Srila Rupa Goswami, in his Padyavali, also talks about the importance of worshipping the Narsimha Shaligram Shila. So Padyavali is another famous scripture written by Rupa Goswami in Vrindavan, where he says that a tulsi leaf offered to the lotus feet of the Narsimha Shaligram Shila destroys the sin of murder. If you offer water which washes the lotus feet of the Narsimha Shaligram Shila, destroys the sin of theft. Foodstuff offered to the bona fide foodstuff offered to the Narsimha Shaligram Shila destroys the sin of drinking liquor. Sincere surrender to the Narsimha Shaligram Shila destroys the sin of adultery with the spiritual master's wife. And the association of devotees of the Narsimha Shaligram Shila, probably the easiest for all of us. The association of the devotees of the Narsimha Shaligram Shila destroys the sin of offenses to the devotees. This is the extraordinary glory of the Narsimha Shaligram Shila. Narsimha Shaligram Shila ki. Okay, now again, our focus is firmly focused on Vrindavan. In Vrindavan, Krishna's great grandson, Vajranab, you must have heard of the name Vajranab. We had a whole lecture series on the pastimes of Radha Govinda ji, and Vajranab featured right at the beginning. Vajranab is Krishna's great grandson. He's the he is the grandson of Uttara, who's Abhimanyu's wife. Her son was Parikshit Maharaj, his son was Janmajaya, and his son is Vajranab. And Vajranab, all the prominent deities that we have in Vrindavan and some of the prominent temples were built by Vajranab right at the start of the Kali Yuga. And okay, can you all raise your hands again, all those who've been to Vrindavan? I'm going to ask you one question. Who is known as the protector of Vrindavan Dham? Yeah, Lord Shiva. And one particular deity of Lord Shiva. Who said that? Very good, Prabhu. Yes, Gopeshwar Mahadev. I mean, there's a very famous pastime of how that deity of Lord Shiva manifested as well, where Lord Shiva wants to be involved in the Rasa Leela pastimes and dresses up as a gopi, but then all the other gopis identify that he's not a gopi and then give him a bit of trouble. So I'm just synopsisizing that. But he feels very aggrieved that he's not be able to take part in the Rasa Leela pastime, and then Krishna gives him this blessing that you will be the protector of the dham. In fact, all the prominent dhams have Lord Shiva as their protector, all the prominent Vaishnav dhams. If you go to Jagannath Puri, there's Lingaraj, Mahadev, Lord Shiva's deity, famous pastime to that Mahadev deity as well. But in Vrindavan, Gopeshwar Mahadev is, one should ideally, in fact, there are certain controllers of Vrindavan. The dust of Vrindavan, Brajarenu, the Yamuna, Tulsi Devi, and Gopeshwar Mahadev are the controllers of Vrindavan. So if you want to have a successful Vrindavan Yatra, you should take the blessings of either of these four personalities. Gopeshwar Mahadev, once you get into Vrindavan, he's not very far from you when you enter Vrindavan from Mathura. So he's one of the first temples you should go and visit. So Vajranab, Krishna's great grandson, he established Gopeshwar Mahadev in Vrindavan. Just like you have Gopeshwar Mahadev, who's the protector of Vrindavan Dham, he established Bhuteshwar Mahadev, who's the protector of Mathura. And he established Nandishwar Mahadev in Nandagaon. But then for groups of 3 forests together, Vrindavan, one means, what does Vrindavan mean? Forest of Tulsi, Vrindavan. And there are 12 prominent forests in Vrindavan. There's Atalvan, Belvan, Kamyavan, so on and so forth. So for groups of 3 forests together, he established Narsimha deities in Vrindavan. For the whole Dham, he had Mahadev deities, but then for groups of these forests together, which had many temples in them, Vajranab established Narsimha deities for their protection. The whole of Vrindavan, Atalavan and Belvan, the precinct areas, there is one prominent deity of Narsimha who's still there. And he established 12 such Narsimha deities in Vrindavan. Many of them sadly disappeared during the Mughal invasions. But then some are still there till this day. And now we'll talk about the prominent Narsimha deities in Vrindavan. The forest of Kamyavan, which is there till today, there is the deity of Trikala Narsimha. He's a Narsimha who has 3 eyes. Trikal means he can see past, present and future. He has 2 eyes and an eye on the forehead which sees the future. According to the sadhus, he's a very, very angry form of Narsimha. Very, very angry, but a very, very powerful deity. There's a very famous pastime associated with this deity as well. So this deity got lost after Vajranab established the temple, and over the years, the deity of Trikal Narsimha got lost to the world. And then Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, again a prominent acharya from Vrindavan, he had a disciple, Krishnadas Babaji. Now Krishnadas Babaji, once when he was taking rest at night, Narsimhadev appeared, a very unique form of Narsimhadev with 3 eyes appeared to him in his dream. And he said that, look, Krishnadas Babaji, you're a pure devotee of mine. I'm stuck at the bottom of this muddy lake, the muddy Yamuna in Bimal Kund. The muddy Yamuna water in Bimal Kund. Please come and rescue me. Please come and rescue me and give me a prominent place of worship. Please come rescue me and establish me in a place of worship. So the very next day, Krishnadas Babaji first cleansed himself by chanting his Gayatri mantras, by taking a proper bath, took the blessings of his guru and dived into the lake. And lo and behold, at the bottom of the lake was the deity of Narsimhadev, the Trikala Narsimhadev with the three eyes who could see the past, present and future. And the other unique thing about the pastime is as soon as he took the deities out of the water and then he was roaming the streets, there was a palace built just next to Bimal Kund, and they were going to build the palace for another Radha Krishna deities. And the people of Vrindavan just had made the strong suggestion to the rulers that this deity of Trikala Narsimha should be established there instead. And that's how that Narsimhadev deity is there ever since in Kamyavan. So that's a very unique story about Trikala Narsimha. So next time you're in Vrindavan and you go to Kamyavan on a yatra, please go there. Another prominent deity of Narsimhadev, his name is Bhaya Narsimha. Bhaya literally means one who is fear. And he's in a very small temple in a very small off street in Mathura. The local sadhus regard him as one of the most powerful and angry Narsimhadev deities. He's the size of Radharaman. We spoke about the Radharaman deity, not very big. He's the size of Radharaman. So the saying, nice things come in small packages, certainly holds true in this regard. So he's a small deity, Bhaya Narsimhadev. He's got a very big face, proportionate to his body, and he's roaring, and with one hand he's roaring and crushing the asuras. The other hand he's got a kamandalu which has got the blood of all the asuras that he's killing. With one foot he's crushing the face of Hiranyakashipu, and with the other foot he's actually crushing Hiranyakashipu's legs. So very angry deity. And the devotees in Vrindavan don't allow him to come out. He's locked up in this casket because the sadhus say he's so angry. If he gets angry, that deity, he will destroy all of Vrindavan and he'll destroy the world, the universe. So that's why his name is Bhaya Narsimha. There's only one day in the whole year that he comes out of the casket and he comes out of the safe. That is on the day of Akshaya Tritiya. You all know the day of Akshaya Tritiya is auspicious to start anything. So for 3.5 hours, he comes out on the day of Akshaya Tritiya where you can have his darshan. But the rest of the days, he's in that box. And in the local Vrindavan literatures, if anyone opens the box on any day other than Akshaya Tritiya, it'll invoke the anger Narsimhadev has for the asuras for the world. So, people are thinking of Vladimir Putin and his plans with nuclear proliferation and destruction. You trouble Bhaya Narsimha, it'll have that effect and much, much more. So you don't want to go near that deity unless it's Akshaya Tritiya. They won't allow you to as well. Then, we spoke about Radharaman. Behind the Radharaman temple itself, some of you who've gone to Radharaman, maybe you may have had the good fortune. There's a Lakshmi Narsimhadev deity. There's a Lakshmi Narsimha temple just behind the Radharaman temple. And that temple and that deity also is a very unique looking deity of Narsimhadev. In one hand he is holding the sun. In one hand he is holding the moon. With his other two hands, it's a 4-armed deity of Narsimhadev. With the other 2 arms, he is tearing the chest of Hiranyakashipu. And then around the deity, with the deity, are the deities of Garuda, Indra, Narad Muni and Prahlad Maharaj and Lakshmi Devi staring into the eyes of Narsimhadev, trying to pacify him. There are various forms of Narsimhadev. We spoke about the Ugra Narsimha, the Mayapur Narsimha deity is a Ugra Narsimha, and only Naishtika Brahmacharis or Brahmacharis who've been celibate all through their life and are Brahmanas can worship the Ugra Narsimhadev deity of the Lord. With the Lakshmi Narsimhadev deity of the Lord, there are slight concessions that Grihasthas can worship the Lakshmi Narsimhadev deities of the Lord. The Ugra Narsimha, as the name suggests, is an angry form of Narsimhadev. The Lakshmi Narsimhadev form of the Lord is half angry, half peaceful. The sandalwood example. And then you have the Shanta Narsimha or Yoga Narsimha, the completely peaceful form of Narsimhadev, whom any initiated Brahmins can worship. And you have all these Narsimhadev deities in Vrindavan. The other very prominent deity of Vrindavan. Anyone here, when you've gone to Vrindavan, have you done Govardhan Parikrama? Okay, quite a few. Very good. When are you planning to do it again? Because you may not have known about this detail back then. So, when you do the Govardhan Parikrama, On the southernmost tip of Giriraj, watch out for it. The name of the area is Punjari. The name of that area is Punjari. The southernmost tip of Giriraj, there's a Narsimha Tilla right up the hill. It's up the hill. Now this is a very, very, very special form of Narsimha Dev in Vrindavan. There's something very unique. Back in the day when Krishna was there, it was physically there. I mean, Krishna never leaves Vrindavan. When he was performing his pastimes in Vrindavan with the Gopas, the Gopis, Nand Maharaj and Yashoda Maiya and all the Brajavasis, he used to actually every day take his herd of cows and bulls to the Narsimha Tilla. And the unique feature about the grass near the Narsimha Tilla is that it never cuts the tongues of the cows who graze on it. And therefore the Brajavasi says that the milk coming from those cows who graze on the grass in Punjari, the southernmost tip of Giriraj, is the tastiest milk in all of Braj. So Yashoda Maiya would also go there quite often. And at the edge of the temple, at the bottom of the hill, she'd call out to Narsimha Dev and say, Narsimha, 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 please protect Krishna and Balram. So she used to worship this form of Narsimha Dev. Is a very ferocious form of Narsimha Dev. The temple was dilapidated over the years. In the year 1740, this famous Rajput king, all glories to him, the king of Bharatpur, his name was Surya Mahal. He re-established the temple of Narsimha Dev in the Narsimha Tilla in Punjari, the southernmost tip of Giriraj. And quite recently, in the last couple of years, one of my godbrothers, Prema Krishna Prabhu, has renovated the whole temple and restored it to its past glory. So next time you go on Govardhan Parikrama, please tell, if you're going by foot, ask the locals or ask a taxi driver or your rickshaw driver or cycle rickshaw driver, where is Punjari and can I go to the Narsimha Tilla there? To take darshan of the same Narsimha deities worshipped by Krishna, Balram and Yashoda Maiya herself. Another prominent Narsimha Dev deity in Gokul, also worshipped by all of Krishna's family. In fact, has a very, very interesting story of how he came to Gokul. Who is Krishna's guru? Okay. And where is his ashram? You should know. Yes, Ujjain. Okay. Anyone know what Ujjain was called in ancient times? Ujjain's name in the ancient times was Avanti or Avantika. The kingdom of Avanti or Avantika, then called Ujjain. Very, very ancient place, Ujjain. Sandipa Muni's ashram is in Ujjain. Now when Krishna was being attacked almost routinely on a daily basis by these demons sent by Kamsa, Mother Puranmasi, again a very prominent devotee, prominent Brajvasi, who's actually the Yoga Maya potency of the Lord, she suggested to Yashoda Maiya that she consult Sandipa Muni and start worshipping Narsimha Dev personally in their house for Krishna and Balram's protection. So Nanda Maharaj therefore reached out to Sandipani Muni, who was going to be Krishna's guru. And Sandipa Muni all the way from Ujjain brought this deity of Narsimha Dev to Gokul. And that deity of Narsimha Dev was brought from Ujjain and was placed in their house and was worshipped daily. And that deity is there till today in Gokul. And there's the Brajavasis have a very sweet commentary about this deity. So the Brajavasis say that the Narsimha Dev in ISKCON as well, Srila Prabhupada first established the Narsimha Dev Aarti and the Narsimha prayers in 1972 in Los Angeles. And he said it, and he said to his disciples at the time that you should worship Narsimha Dev every day for the protection of the temple, the yatra and all the devotees. So that's why every day, at 7:30 today we'll have the Narsimha Aarti. So this was established in ISKCON. It's the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, but we place a lot of importance on the worship of Narsimha Dev and all forms of Krishna for that matter. And so we worship Narsimha Dev for predominantly. What do we worship Narsimha Dev for? Protection. So just as Narsimha Dev, going back to the story of this deity established by Sandipa Muni, just as we worship Narsimha Dev, just as Narsimha Dev protects his devotees Similarly, the Guru is the representative of Narsimhadev who protects their disciples from material sins and spiritual offenses. So this is the talking point of Sandipa Muni establishing this deity in Krishna's house. And this is the importance one should give to your Guru, your bona fide spiritual master. The bona fide spiritual master is an external representative of Narsimhadev and is protecting you just like Narsimhadev is himself. And hence one should be extremely respectful and subordinate to the spiritual master. The other prominent form of Narsimhadev, and this form of Narsimhadev is not in Vrindavan anymore. When the Radha Govinda ji temple and when other prominent deities of Vrindavan were being moved to Jaipur, this deity followed them and is now in the temple compound of the Radha Govinda Dev Mandir in Jaipur, in a small lane. And the pujaris of that temple, they have this saying. This is a very unique form of Narsimhadev where Narsimhadev is actually laughing. Never heard, you see Narsimhadev is in an angry mood. There is Shanta Narsimha, Lakshmi Narsimha, but Hasya Narsimha, there is no description or even a word. So this is a Narsimhadev deity which is laughing, and the pujaris say that this Narsimhadev deity is laughing at Maya. And then the other unique thing about this deity is in front of him, he's got two devotees. Usually you associate Prahlad Maharaj with Narsimhadev. This form of Narsimhadev has Prahlad Maharaj on one lap and Dhruva Maharaj on the other lap. So another very unique form of Narsimhadev. So those are the prominent Narsimhadev forms in Vrindavan. And Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur says in the Navadvip Mahatmya, he says that if one follows in the threshold of Narsimhadev's palace to remove all the obstacles in developing pure love, if one worships Narsimhadev in this mood, that one wants pure love of Krishna, he grants it. Again, we mentioned Paramananda Prabhu in this class. Let's see how attentive you were. Who was Paramananda Prabhu? We mentioned one of his verses as well about the sandalwood nature of Narsimhadev. Paramananda Prabhu was, a hint, he was from Vrindavan. A Vaishnava poet in Vrindavan. So in the Brajabhasa, he says, he has this another one-line poem, one-line couplet of a poem. He says, Jo leho Vaikuntha na jaye ho. Jo leha Vaikuntha na jaye ho. And he references this line to Narsimhadev himself. So he says that when Narsimhadev came and killed Hiranyakashipu, and of course, everyone in the universe was trying to pacify him. In the end, only one personality could pacify the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Who was that? Prahlad Maharaj. Then when the time came when Narsimhadev was going to go away back to Vaikuntha, Prahlad Maharaj begged him to stay. And that time Narsimhadev said to Prahlad Maharaj, Jo leho Vaikuntha na jaye ho. And Paramananda Prabhu explains, what this means is that Narsimhadev is being requested by Prahlad Maharaj to stay. And Narsimhadev tells Prahlad Maharaj that on your request, Prahlad, I'll not go back to Vaikuntha, but I'll always stay with my devotees in the form of my Murti. So that is the other benediction of worshipping Narsimhadev's Murti. You are actually worshipping the personality Narsimha. You must have that mood that you are worshipping the personality of Narsimhadev himself, because Narsimhadev himself is saying that I won't go back to Vaikuntha, but I'll always stay with my devotees in the form of my Murti. And then when he says this, Prahlad Maharaj tells him, Prahlad Maharaj also says something very, very sweet and very, very unique. Prahlad Maharaj tells Narsimhadev, my dear Lord Narsimhadev, a snake can give birth to a snake. A lioness can give birth to a lion or other lionesses. But I saw for the first time that a stone pillar can manifest or give birth to a deity or a personality whose heart is melted with the prayers and request of his devotees. So I'll say it again. My dear Lord Narsimhadev, a snake can give birth to a snake. A lioness can give birth to a lion. But I saw for the first time that a stone pillar can manifest a deity whose heart is melted with the prayers and requests of his devotees. So this is Prahlad Maharaj ki. And now, to end the class, we'll end the class again with a conclusion given by Paramananda Prabhu. So Narsimhadev says, Jo leha Vaikuntha na jai ho. Prahlad Maharaj compares that a snake can give birth to a snake, a lioness gives birth to a lion cub. But then this is the first time that from a stone pillar, a deity has come forth into this world who is melted by the prayers of and requests of his devotees. So then Prahlad Maharaj, Paramananda Prabhu's conclusion to this dialogue between Narsimhadev and Prahlad Maharaj is that Lord Narahari pleased his devotee Prahlad, pleased by his devotee Prahlad. There's a very unique thing to learn from this conclusion. In this world generally, what are you all running after? What are we all running after? Happiness, and we think that we can get it maybe by earning money, by getting a nice car, and various things. The yogis have a different standard of happiness. For them it is Brahmananda, to be one with Brahman. For the devotees, they have different rasas with Krishna, and it's also about serving the devotees gives them great joy. But then everyone is running after happiness. In fact, there's a prominent pastime in the Bhagavatam where the demigods and the search for happiness and nectar causes even the demigods and the asuras to work together. What are they working together for? And what do they want? They want nectar so that they can remain immortal and be happy ever after. So Paramananda Prabhu's conclusion. So they after the nectar and that pastime it's quite intense, where they're using the help of Vasuki and the Kurma incarnation in Mount Mandrachal to churn the ocean of milk to get nectar, and all sorts of things come out. Poison also comes out in the beginning, and then they have a whole dispute about who gets the nectar first, and Krishna has to intervene there. So there's a lot of activity that goes on in this material world to get nectar or happiness. And here Paramananda Prabhu's conclusion is, Lord Narahari, pleased by his devotee Prahlad, took a spoon filled with nectar and placed it into the lotus mouth of Prahlad Maharaj, saying, may my devotees always be victorious. So much endeavor, you can get all of that just by worshipping Narsimhadev. So that was the end of the class. We've got just under 4 minutes. Okay. Does anyone have any questions? No? Okay, no questions. Okay. I hope everyone paid attention and could get something out of the class. But okay, thank you very much. Shri Narsimhadev Bhagwan ki, Shri Bhakta Prahlad Maharaj ki, Srila Prabhupada ki.
There is a small announcement before we start the Gaura Aarti today. The wonderful class given by Govinda Prabhu, and just to mention that Govinda Prabhu has lost his ailing father recently in the month of December. Today's Aarti and the Kirtan is dedicated to his late father. So let's give a Haribol to Govinda Prabhu's father who just passed away. So we'll chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra 3 times together. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Thank you.
हरे कृष्ण। जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी गोपी जन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी। यशोदानंदन ब्रज जन रंजन यशोदानंदन जमुना तीर बनचारी जमुना तीर। जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी गोपी जन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। जय राधा गोपीनाथ राधा गोपीनाथ श्री राधे।